Welcome to the Take 92 podcast. My name is Sammy Warm Hands. I am your host, and today we're doing a special episode. This is out of order. 64 hasn't aired yet, but we're doing 65, and it's going to come out early. So I am obviously, if you know me at all, a huge Batman fan, and there was a very relevant movie that just came out that everyone's been talking about. And I decided, instead of jumping on this, that I was going to sit on that for a minute and really think about it. And I decided to bring on another big film fan, my friend Brian, to talk about it.
What's up?
How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm a film fan. I really enjoy movies, even ones that people talk about a lot. I like exploring polarizing movies because I like seeing, one, where I stand, but two, like what exactly it is that people are saying they love about it or things that they absolutely despise about it.
So you've done extensive research on like Gigli and
That's right, yeah.
Jersey Girl and
no, I did.
The middle Ben Affleck years that no one talks about.
No, but no, I don't think I started paying much attention to Ben Affleck until he made Argo. And then that kind of blew up, and I'm like, yeah, Ben Affleck. I mean, that's when I learned, like, oh yeah, pre-Argo Affleck, that was like the Gigli, Daredevil, times, and then post that, I was like, oh, he makes movies, and oh, people seem to care that he's not, he wasn't recognized by the Academy that year. So like, I think I'll take him seriously. And then a few years down the line, it sort of dissipated a little bit.
Well, he got really tied up doing Batman.
Yeah,
he was. It doesn't seem like it because he never had a solo Batman feature, but I mean, he was in 3 different films as that character, and so I think the only thing he squeezed out in the middle of that was Live by Night. Mm-hmm. I knew him from Mallrats, and then like Chasing Amy and Jay and Silent Bob and stuff, which, by the way, we went to that reboot the other night. Best scene in the whole movie.
Oh, yeah.
And then obviously Good Will Hunting, but when he did, and I can't remember which was first. I feel like The Town was first, but they were right around the same time. The Town and Argo back to back was just like, holy fucking shit!
Yeah,
like, he is killing it. And then I decided, like, I'm gonna dig back a little bit. And then I really like Changing Lanes with him and Sam Jackson, and that other one, Gone Baby Gone. I mean, he's
so many of those titles you've listed have just gone right over my head. Like I know a lot of these movies. I know he directed.
Have you seen The Town?
I own The Town. I haven't seen The Town.
Okay,
I think my mom has seen The Town.
The Town, I seriously put up there with like Heat. It's such a good heist movie. I don't know, me personally, the only thing I could possibly slight Heat for is getting bogged down with subplot, like particularly the De Niro love interest thing. Just kind of like they could have done that in one scene because it was just to establish that he always says, like, don't have anything you can't walk away from in a second, like with the heat comes or whatever.
Is this the point at which I break your heart again and tell you I also haven't seen Heat?
What the fuck?
Here I am. We literally started the show.
Film school?
But yeah. Everybody will tell me that. I'm saying, like, I'm going to school for film, studying film, and they always say one thing, like, have you seen this one movie? Like, I
didn't even say that. I assumed.
Right, exactly. It's based off of an assumption, but one of my managers from work, I talked to him about some of how I was studying film. He's like, oh, have you seen Weird Science? I'm like,
actually, I haven't seen.
No, I haven't seen Weird Science because he was playing Oingo Boingo at work, and they did the theme song for that movie, and so that sparked that conversation. I was like, no, I've never seen it. He was like, you call yourself a film major? You've never seen Weird Science?
Yeah, I mean, I try not to do that to people of like, I'm a punk rocker who doesn't listen to Black Flag and Circle Jerks and whatever. It's like people have their own taste, whatever.
Right. But also, it's not. I'm not saying I haven't seen these films as like a refusal to see these movies.
Yeah.
It's just I haven't seen these movies. I have, I like to think I have a pretty open palette for a lot of kinds of different movies, but some I just haven't gotten around to yet. I have a whole watch list, of movies that I haven't watched yet. That I'm just
gonna keep you here until like 6 a.m.
until I name one movie that you mentioned that I've seen.
No, we're just gonna watch them in order. First, we have to watch Heat, and then we have to watch The Town,
Like the Hot Fuzz, like, all right, you got Heat, Gone Baby Gone. Which do I prefer? No, which one do you want to watch first?
Yeah. I actually did that once to my friend Eric Munch. We were making, I think it was the first Stolen Songs record where I make cover songs, and it was like 2008, and we were talking about Goodfellas, and I said something about like, oh yeah, like that Pesci in that scene in Casino, whatever. He's like, oh, I never saw that one, and I was like, we're done for the day, and we went inside and we watched Casino and just stopped recording for the rest of the day because I was like, no, you have to go see this. It's like 3 hours, so like we're done, but like I'm just gonna stop making my record so you can see this right now.
And what would you say that was? Goodfellas?
No, it was Casino. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen Goodfellas. I haven't watched Casino yet.
What? God, again?
Okay, so I've maybe you can help me with this. So I'm trying to figure out like trying to set the path for how I want to watch movies I haven't watched before, and I tried doing it this month by introducing myself to a bunch of horror movies that I haven't watched before, and so I tried to do like, I listed 31 different horror movies that I want to try to get watched by November.
Sure, October, it's perfect time.
Yeah, I definitely just said November.
Yeah, no, you said by November. That's a great excuse to do that.
Yeah, perfect. I didn't make a mistake. But so I tried doing it like maybe by genre. Then I thought, okay, maybe if I just try to finish up filmographies of people I'm aware of, like
I like doing that.
Yeah,
you know, like you get on a loop of someone of like, oh shit, and they were in this one, and they were in this one, and they were in this one.
Yeah, exactly. And you notice like
I love doing
that. Just little like nuances. Like I can actually talk about performance where I've seen like more than one Ben Affleck movie, or more than one. Like I've almost seen all the Tarantino movies. I've almost seen.
What are you missing in Tarantino?
I'm only missing Jackie Brown. And
Jackie Brown's a weird one too. Yeah, like, I would compare that most to the newest one because it's such an anomaly.
Mm-hmm. And then I guess if you want to count Death Proof, I've watched.
Oh, you haven't seen Death Proof?
No, I didn't.
Did you see Planet Terror? Oh man, I saw Grindhouse 3 times in the theater, the double.
It was like 9.5 hours worth of.
It was so fun though. And they had all the fake trailers before and in between, and man, Grindhouse was like the coolest shit.
I watched a bunch of the.
Look at that!
Oh yeah,
yeah. I got the fucking framed.
I watched a bunch of the trailers that are in the middle of it. Thanksgiving and Don't.
Yeah. Machete, obviously.
Yeah. And so I'm trying to figure out how far I want to do that because first I could do like, okay, who are people that I've seen like a bunch of movies from, like Coen Brothers or like Spielberg or. I think there's only one director that I've actually seen every single movie of theirs, and that's Mel Brooks. Oh. He's made like 11 or 12 movies.
I definitely have not.
There's one movie that I was missing. It was called The 12 Chairs. It's it's very different kind of Mel Brooks movie. It was a second movie after The Producers, and it has Frank Langella, and he's in it for like a little bit, and it's a really interesting movie. But that was that. After I watched that, I was like, okay, now I feel like I can confidently talk about like Mel Brooks ad nauseum. Like, I think Young Frankenstein he's a masterpiece, but I think Blazing Saddles is still my favorite. I think silent movie is very underrated as a 70s comedy. But I just want to be able to have the
context,
back up a lot of opinions I might have, because I can still have an opinion on like Scorsese, but I don't have a fuller opinion because I haven't seen a lot of other movies.
Well, and Scorsese is really relevant to this conversation. I'm curious, what have you seen from Scorsese? What have you seen from David Fincher? Because I feel like those are relevant to Joker.
I actually a good amount, enough to be able to talk about things in this podcast. I've seen Taxi Driver.
Yeah.
I've seen The Departed.
That's my favorite.
I've seen The King of Comedy.
Yeah. Which is so funny that that's having a revival right now, because I watched it like 6 months ago after hearing that it was tied into this, and I was like, this is weird. It's not the best, but it has some cool shit in it.
I remember being at a GameStop like 12 years ago, maybe 13 years ago, and they had a DVD of that, and I'd never heard of the movie, but I like picked it up because it had comedy. I was like, King of Comedy. I was like, oh, that's a very enticing title for someone at my age.
Yeah.
So I look at it, I was like, oh, this seems like a pretty interesting movie. I'm surprised.
This looks funny.
Yeah. This seems like it's appropriate for my age. And I just had never heard anything from it. And then about 3 years ago, I was in Mexico, I had a lot of downtime. So I was scrolling through Netflix, and I don't know if you know this, but Netflix in Mexico is very different from Netflix in the United States.
I mean, I imagine there's different licensing and permissions and
yes,
all that.
But it's tremendous. They had it was basically like Disney Plus. They had like all the Star Wars movies, all the Marvel movies.
Nice.
A lot more Adam Sandler movies that I recognized on in Mexico Netflix than in US. Just like things that, I mean, not like hidden gem movies that you never heard of, but like stuff that you just don't normally see streaming on Netflix.
But those three things are like, okay, that's some of my favorite shit ever. So
yeah, so I mean, and one of the things that was on there was King of Comedy. I'm like, okay, well, I have all day. I'm not going to go and do anything, so I might as well just watch King of Comedy. And so I watched it, and I figured that out, and then once Joker was starting to started getting worked on and the trailer came out and people were making comparisons, I was like, oh, yeah. I get it.
How about David Fincher?
David Fincher, I've seen Fight Club. I've seen Zodiac.
Yeah.
Social Network.
Yeah.
Love The Social Network. I own Gone Girl.
You motherfucker. And we're back to Ben Affleck.
I haven't watched it yet.
Gone
Girl,
there's
one more.
Gone Girl is like my... I don't want to say without looking at my DVD rack, but Gone Girl, I want to say, is like probably my favorite. Just standalone movie.
One-off.
Yeah, like my favorite one-off movie that's come out in fucking years. Like, that movie really got me. Like, it's rare that I go see a movie that's so good and I go buy the book and read it, and then I go buy the DVD and watch it again. It was one of those for me.
You won't get tired of it.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll be like, oh, I feel like watching Gone Girl.
Yeah, my wife would give me shit like. Oh, you gonna watch your favorite movie for the 100th time? I was like, no, I haven't. I think this is like the 5th time. It's not that bad. It's kind of a gross movie to be obsessed with, but I just really like it. Fuck, I can't even talk to you about that then. God damn it.
One of the problems I come with is there's so many movies that I have not seen, but there's so many movies that I have had kind of spoiled to me.
Yeah.
So like I know certain beats of spoilers for Gone Girl, but
which is a shame. Yeah, that is a fucking shame.
And I don't seek it. I don't seek these spoilers. It just sort of comes in. I put two and two together. I'm like, oh, that's probably how Gone Girl ends.
Well, we were on our fucking 20-year anniversary vacation in Hawaii when Joker came out, and I'm seeing everyone on social media posting about this shit, and I'm like, dude, we have to go, or this is gonna get ruined for me.
Yeah,
like, fucking Endgame got spoiled for me.
Oh.
The day of the fucking showing. Like, spoiler alert, if you're really behind and you haven't seen Endgame, I'm going to drop that shit right now. Some dude posted on his Facebook wall, Iron Man and Black Widow die. Like, delete me, fuck you, whatever. And I was like, you piece of fucking shit. And I called him a piece of shit, and I did delete him. Fuck that.
I don't normally delete people on Facebook that often, but one of the more recent times I did was straight up just because they spoiled Force Awakens. And I did not know.
You haven't seen Force Awakens?
No. Well, this was when it came out before I'd seen it.
Yeah.
But his only post, it just says, okay, spoiler alert for the biggest domestic movie of all time. It just said like, I think it just said Han Solo dies, and I read that first as like, okay, well, you could just say anything and just. You to fuck with people and be like, oh, everybody dies, And
I've seen other people say that shit, and I'll be like, God damn it! And I'll go to the movie and it's wrong. And I'm like, oh,
no,
good.
yeah, that was my experience with Infinity War. I saw a whole list of people that was like, they die. And I'm like, oh,
you're like, why'd you show me this?
And then I go see Infinity War. I'm like, oh, that was just a total troll move. Like that wasn't real at all.
Yeah.
But I said to myself, okay, well, I'm gonna go see Force Awakens. I'm gonna take what this post is with a grain of salt. And I see it, and then fucking Han Solo dies. I'm like, God damn it! Yeah. So I deleted him. I'm like, I don't
block that.
It was
bitch.
Also a person I honestly don't even think I knew. Yeah, but like it was just some.
Yeah, it's always some asshole you haven't talked to in 5 years. You're like, oh, great. I'm so glad that I didn't unfollow you years ago.
Yeah, lately I've been a little more vigilant in avoiding spoilers and knowing like before something comes out, like, all right, when am I going to see it and how long am I going to have before I can?
Yeah, dude. I'm to
Twitter.
The extent where like with the way binge watching is. I don't even follow the TV shows I like on social media.
Yeah.
Because if you follow, House of Cards, for example, and it's been out for 3 days, they'll just start posting shit.
Oh, yeah.
You know, Netflix shows, they expect you are caught up, you know.
I had to hop on El Camino like right away when it dropped.
Same thing, yeah.
And then the next morning when I thought I was going to, well, when I watched it, I was like, oh, I'll just watch like 10 minutes of it and I'll go to bed. Because it was midnight and I had to be up early. I ended up just watching the whole thing, and then I went to bed. I got up the next morning, I just opened my phone, look at like trending topics on El Camino, open it. First thing was like a big spoiler.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, well, glad it's that fast.
Yeah,
like,
part of it is because I'm like such a fan. I've always been the guy who like used to go to the midnight premieres, and you know, now I always still go to the Thursday night previews, and I really want to check things out right away. I get excited from first trailers and casting announcements and whatever. But like the other part of it is because I'm invested and I care that much, I have to shield myself from that bullshit by just jumping in it like right away. Even if I'm in a fucking other state on a vacation with my wife and she doesn't want to go, I go, hey, we didn't go tonight. We have to go tomorrow. We have to go tomorrow.
It's imperative that I just...
Like, I'm sorry, I've been a fan of this character since I was 4. We have to go now.
This is, this is my fucking thing.
Yeah, well, and she loves going to, but it was just like not feeling it.
Doesn't have the level of enthusiasm.
For the Hawaii vacation of her dreams.
Yeah, like, can we just spend some time here in Hawaii?
So all that aside, I don't know how fucking long we've already been talking, but I just wanted to start with, kind of what we're talking about in the films that it kind of reminded me of, the things I had elements of, everyone's saying Taxi Driver and King of Comedy, which great jumping off point.
Valid points,
You know, I think a lot of Taxi Driver is the setting.
Yeah, like look at this muck of a town.
Yeah, and this person who is very much a product of that setting, who's the loner, who's kind of just slowly unwinding.
And is seeking like validation through a violent act as a way for like getting, maybe in the sense of Taxi Driver, notoriety.
Yeah.
Or in the case with the Joker, just sort of chaos or just like
I think it's less thought out. There's not necessarily a goal there. It's more just reacting to things. You know, it's not a character that necessarily makes a plan, and it's like in The Dark Knight. Do I look like a guy with a plan?
Right.
And then obviously King of Comedy, you have De Niro playing the host, reversing his role of was it Rupert?
Rupert Pupkin?
Yeah, which is a hilarious name. Reversing his role in that situation, which I thought was clever, and to do it some 30 years later is perfect. Now that he's aged into that, what was typically a gray-haired guy, sitting behind the bench, not so much
just
these
making
days.
Jokes about rats.
Yeah. Which, by the way, did you notice on the second viewing that they show one of those giant fucking rats?
Like
it walks around the corner. Murray Franklin, De Niro's character, mentions it in his monologue, and then shortly after that, there's like somebody standing on the corner, and it's right in the beginning of the scene. You see this big, like fucking possum-sized rat just run around the corner.
I think they did another one too. I thought maybe I'm misremembering, but in the shot at the very end, when they show the shot of Bruce Wayne with his parents in the alley, behind him there's way behind him there's like a big visible rat running behind him.
I didn't notice that one.
One of my big notes was something I haven't really figured out yet, is just what's with the rats, like super rats. I'm not really sure what that is supposed to mean, if it's supposed to mean anything, or if it's it's just sort of to illustrate how weirdly livable of a place Gotham City is.
That's hard to say. I mean, I'll just say for the listeners now, I don't know how to do this without gratuitous spoilers, so if you haven't seen Joker and you care about that, I'd stop it now. Yeah. I'm assuming by this point, if you're a fan of the genre, you have seen it and you just wanted to hear our take on it. So I would say that most of my notes are under the category of real or not real. Mm-hmm. The super rats might play into that in terms of what is fantasy. Because if you think about, they were on the news, and then they were joked about in the hallucination. the Murray Franklin monologue.
Yeah. Another thing that's sort of kind of shouted out throughout the movie that's reminiscent of the two De Niro Scorsese movies is just these hallucinations, these kind of fantasies that Arthur is having, where he's like on the show and he's killing it at pogos, or just an entire character.
I think that from the outside, this movie is like Taxi Driver meets King of Comedy. But when you start to really unravel it and peel back the layers, it's got a lot more Fight Club, American Psycho, even like American Beauty. If you, in terms of the main character is hallucinating and daydreaming and bringing you into his head. So you're going from reality into the guy's head. And so you'll have a scene that is normal. And then like in American Beauty, you start to see the fucking rose petals and they're like, this is not fucking real, you know? Just as like, you know, and that was their whole metaphor for appearances in that movie. But I rewatched Fight Club this weekend as well. And there are great little cues throughout that movie, like Tyler is with Marla at night. In the morning, the narrator is back to Jack, or whatever you want to call him, back to himself, you know, and a lot of the things that Tyler does are at night, and they've established in the beginning of this movie he's an insomniac, and that, you know, reality, like, am I awake, am I asleep, the line is starting to blur. And so, I mean, they give so much to you right up front, and you just don't see it. You know?
Yeah.
And I think that that's one of the great things that gives those movies replay value.
Yeah.
You know, or like American Psycho of him doing these heinous things, and like he's, you know, confessing to these crimes, and like, what crime? Like, what, you know, what are you talking about? You know, and so Joker, the more you look at it, is actually more akin to some of these other movies than it is Death Wish.
Right.
I think actually Death Wish is really interesting because that was a movie I thought of in the subway scene.
The Wall Street guys.
Yeah, the Wall Street guys.
His first real act of violence.
Yeah, start fucking with him, and he commits those murders. And it reminded me of Death Wish, and also I don't know if you'd call it a remake or just like a reimagining of it, but the Brave one with Jodie Foster.
Oh, yeah.
Both of those movies are the same premise of like, suffered a personal tragedy, you know, get a gun to defend yourself, kind of go down the vigilante path. But they both have that subway scene. And I'm watching it, and it's so unnerving, and it's so uncomfortable, and the way it plays out, like in those other movies, you feel like it's wrong, but there's also like, they are the protagonist, and there's some sort of righteousness in like them fighting back, and these people are coming to attack them, you know.
And you're left with one option.
So even though they're in a way baiting it just by going out there and trolling the night, you know, you're a little more on their side a little bit. But when I was watching this, the first viewing, when that scene finished, I'm like, holy shit, this is like a really hyper realistic version of that scene, because I the whole time through it, I'm just like, this is fucked, this is wrong.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing pleasant about this. I'm not enjoying this.
In like the first instance, it's like, you know, they're kicking him, they're bullying him, and
in the alleyway in the beginning.
In the subway scene where they're attacking him, and he shoots them in self-defense.
Yeah.
But then he's just chasing the last guy.
Yeah.
He's like, just really like, it's really like,
he liked it.
Taking over. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He feels no remorse, and no, you know, his first time, you know, his first time killing someone, his first 2 times killing someone, he doesn't feel it, and he's desensitized to it instantly. Yeah. And then he takes that, and that's sort of a big turning point.
Yeah, and I think it's different because it's not some big tough guy mugger, you know. They painted them as, you know, everyday suit and tie commuters. And so there's something just easy about a clear villain getting shot on screen, and you again, it's like The Dark Knight, where it's like, if a truck full of soldiers gets blown up, nobody bats an eye because it's all part of the plan,
Yeah.
So they're kind of taking that idea and going, yeah, well, what if the Joker does these things in a very real, normal setting, then how do you feel about it,
Right.
And it definitely changes the tone. And like you said, hearing the guy, or the guy who was running off, and you hear him, moaning and whimpering or whatever, and he just walks up and executes him. It's a whole other thing. For sure. Yeah.
And then just like kind of punctuated with all of everything he does. One of my notes was I noticed how every time he commits an act of violence, either in the same room or immediately the next scene, he's dancing.
Yeah.
He go after the subway killing. He goes and he dances by himself in the bathroom
after the subway.
Yeah, after the subway.
And then I'm pretty sure
the sequence when he stabs his old coworker.
Yeah, that's when he dances down the stairs.
He dances down the stairs. And it helps me understand like the very, very last shot of the movie when it's not really told to you whether he killed the
psychiatrist person.
Yeah, but because you don't see it, you have questions, but you see the blood on his shoes, and then he at the very end of when he walks down the hall, he has this little performative spin around after he shoots Murray Franklin. He
dances off the steps, kind of
dances. He kind of just does a little. It's all very
and further on the car.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that answers another question for me of like the neighbor on whether or not like because when he walks into her apartment and just does nothing, and then the next shot we see is just him walking outside. He's not doing anything jubilant, or he's not dancing, which makes me think that I don't think that was one instance where I don't think he did anything.
A reason I wanted to do this show is because there's so much being said about the movie. There was so much said about it and written about it before anyone even saw it. Mm-hmm. There's so much like political context. There's so much baggage just in like the time we live in. Mm-hmm. But I think if this movie was released in a different time, those conversations wouldn't exist or would be very different. Mm-hmm. And so I get the people who are trying to, call it some kind of statement, but really to me, again, like these other movies that we talked about, American Psycho and Fight Club and stuff like that, and Taxi Driver, I think that there's so much merit in this by itself that's worthy of what the fuck did I just see? And if you look at it just at face value, or if you're only looking at the premise and writing your blog post on it, I just feel like you're selling it short and you're missing a really great opportunity to have a good experience, because this is the stuff that's interesting to me. It's like, when I went to see The Matrix when I'm, 14, and you're standing outside with your friends waiting for your mom to pick you up, and you're all talking about like, whoa, what just, was this thing real? What, and there's so much of that in this fucking movie of showing you these little details like the dance or whatever, and it's starting to piece together, okay, so then that means that didn't happen, or this didn't,
right.
and just in the second viewing, I felt like it was even more confusing, because the first time I had nothing, and I was going in with just a gist of what the movie was going to be, and it was so tense and disgusting, and just like I felt gross watching it, like it's not like there's violence through the whole movie, but when you watch a fucking Bruce Willis movie or something, it's much different than when you're watching something that's like super grounded and realistic, and and they make you feel it.
Something that feels like it could feels more like something that could happen.
Yeah.
Or something that has happened.
Yeah, and I think the timing of it, in fact, makes it more poignant, because it's not apologizing for him. It's not rooting for him. It's not, at least I feel that way, that it's not like, oh man, you see him fucking stab that guy in the eyeball? That was funny,
Yeah.
Like, that was not funny.
But there were certainly people in my theater when I saw it that kind of read it that way, and so I was watching, sort of being entertained by it, and like laughing at weird points, like someone being stabbed or shooting Murray Franklin, or just like odd points where you're thinking you kind of get two different sides of the audience, where you have one side who's watching it and really being affected by it, going, oh man, that's really messed up. But then the other half is like, oh, isn't that great? Like in The Departed, when at the beginning when he's like, she felt funny. Yeah, you could
Francis, you really got to see someone.
Yeah, I think it's emblematic of that kind of response, and that's what's kind of fascinating about these kinds of polarizing movies, which is that two different people can read this in very, very different ways, and
and I get that is concern. When I read some things about it going into it that I felt like, I don't want a movie to inspire these fucking monsters, and I don't think that their goal is to sympathize with this. I think he's no different than the Joker has ever been in terms of how cold and unforgiving, it's just making it so real. And really, really for me, the end of the first viewing, when they're in the streets and it's after the car accident and shit is wild, and I felt like a physical need for Batman.
Right.
Because there is the reason it's so fucked up in this particular movie is just because there's no balance. There's no moral compass.
It's all just skewed on this one
all
side.
All in his head. And so there's no, there's no good and bad. You're not able to... Good example is a movie called... why is it escaping me? I think it's called Nocturnal Animals.
Yeah.
With Jake Gyllenhaal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That movie is so fucking intense that you'll be going to this scene and you're on the edge of your seat. You feel like you're going to throw up or something. It's so intense.
Yeah.
And then it'll cut to Amy Adams in bed reading the book, and she has to close the book. I'm like, Jesus Christ. And she is representing the audience in this case of like, okay, let's take a break.
Yeah, we need a breather for.
And there's none of that. It's just, look, this is real. These people might be around you. Don't look away.
Yeah.
And that, I think that's worth something. I don't think that you can throw that out as being celebrating this culture or something. I think it's going, well, this is something that we like to get surprised about a lot.
Mm.
But is it really that hard to believe,
Yeah. It's like in the sense of talking about like war movies, Yeah. A lot of people with every war movie that comes out, the question rises of like, is this movie pro-war or is it anti-war? And I think however you kind of answer that question, it might help you shape how you can view a movie that like this, that asks questions or that brings up a theme of like, this is grounded in reality. This is kind of real stuff. It's just more under a guise that we're, this IP that we're a little familiar with. Because this movie is almost not even. It's almost not even like a comic book movie.
I mean, I've heard people make that argument that it's like, oh, it's just an excuse to get people in the seats. But like, I'll go through my reasons why it's connected. But like,
I think it's like it totally can be connected. There's lots of hints or things that fans of Batman will recognize that maybe other people.
But I also just think it's true to the character.
Right.
There's no giant leaps really, and a lot of the reactions that people had when the film was announced was like, why? I was among them going, I love Joaquin Phoenix. He's one of the best actors alive.
Yeah.
But what are you doing, Warner Brothers? It didn't make any sense to me that, okay, so you are killing off half the DCEU. You're continuing with Harley in Birds of Prey. You're continuing with Wonder Woman. You're continuing with Aquaman. All those movies getting sequels. While Batman is out, Superman is unknown to this day.
Yeah.
You've already announced the Matt Reeves reboot, and now you're going to do a standalone in a different universe. I'm like, so you simultaneously...
Of a character that you just did 3 years ago.
That you just did. And as far as we know, is in current continuity because Birds of Prey is coming out.
Right.
And there's references to him in the fucking press for it. So it's like, okay, why do we have three...
in the trailer, as a trailer for Joker.
Which actually I was disappointed. I did not see a Birds of Prey trailer in my Joker showings.
I got one.
But I thought that was really weird that they're going to start a third... Yeah, I mean, it's not unheard of in comics. There's a lot of different versions. I'm always a person who's a proponent of like, yeah, okay, well, you know, that series ended, but let's do it again. Let's see a new take on it. You know, let's take it in a different direction. You know, I like that, but it felt like so soon. But then as you're watching it, you know, you think of, I mean, Todd Phillips used the words unreliable narrator in relation to Arthur Fleck, and I thought that was great.
It's one of my notes.
Yeah, and so I knew that, and in thinking of like The Dark Knight, you know, you want to know how I got these scars, you know, and it's always a different story.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you look at what was the quote from The Killing Joke? He said, "Sometimes I remember it one way, sometimes another. If I'm going to have a past, I prefer it multiple choice." You know, and I think people were mad because, well, we don't need a Joker origin story because we don't want to know where the dude came from. It's more interesting.
Yeah, we already like the end of the end of this movie is basically everything we already know about Joker. You know, it's like it's a big selling point of like one reason, you know, why this movie has been so successful, even though it's compared to you know, DC movies
or any real like big popcorn movie.
Yeah, a fairly mild budget.
Yeah,
and it's made a tremendous amount of money.
Yeah,
for Warner Brothers, for an R-rated movie, and just for just a movie in October.
And for an October movie, that's what I heard.
It's demolishing it. Yeah, just last year there was Venom, which broke the October record, and then again just the spin-off villain movie in October. That is the next to break the record.
Yeah. Just that idea, though, of that the origin is unnecessary and, like, we don't want to see how he became a Joker and whatever. And, you know, listening to the press, you know, I've watched a lot of videos. I've listened to podcast interviews. People trying to corner Joaquin Phoenix on, like, well, what does this part mean to you? And he's like, I don't know. You know, I'd play it one way, I'd play it another way, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't really know. You know,
if you're looking for answers from a Joaquin Phoenix interview,
I know. But there was even a good one. He was on the Real Blend podcast, and him, and then the next episode was Todd Phillips. And they were both good interviews. Like Todd Phillips would dodge questions in press, but Joaquin in that one anyway was very much, I don't know. We didn't talk about that. Yeah. I didn't want to know the reason for this. I didn't want to know too much about this motivation or that thing. And I think that's what makes it so interesting is that it is giving people, like, here's the Joker origin story. Like, I don't want to know his story. I'm like, does anyone know what happened? Because not really, you know. We still don't know.
Yeah. We still get the Batman origin thrown into our brains every time we see Batman, which I think maybe you can speak better on this. Do you think we need to keep learning? Do you think we need to keep seeing the alley scene? Do you think we need to keep seeing the pearls? Do you think
but I think that has to be case by case in terms of the filmmaker's vision, because if you take, for example, Batman v Superman, I think that is a great example of a late era Batman that would not need that to be part of the story. And yet, it's the best shot in the movie, the way that the film opens, and his little monologue, you know, like, there's a time where there were perfect things, you know, and you show him fall through the cave, and then, we cut back, and he's like standing there at his parents' gravestone. I remember watching that for the first time on the big screen at the premiere, and seeing in sharp focus Martha Wayne, like more so than Thomas Wayne, and I thought, I said, oh, that's nice. They ignore her all the time, and so like I'm seeing that on the screen, going, oh wow, that's really cool. They gave her a little more screen time, and then obviously that plays in later. So there was a reason why you had to see it again there, because that was a climax in the movie, with the whole Martha thing, and people don't like that. You could go listen to my Justice League episode where I talk about that. But it was relevant. Now, you could argue that in this one, it was less relevant. However, the idea of creating Joker and Batman on the same day is interesting. It's never been done.
Yeah.
That the same... and not having... Because if you look at Batman 89... Have you seen all the Batman movies generally?
Most of them, yeah. I've seen 89... I haven't seen the Kilmer ones or the Batman and Robin. Yeah, I've seen the
Schumacher ones,
quote-unquote reputable ones.
Yeah. So if you look at 89, one of the criticisms was that Jack Napier killed the Waynes. It was essential for that story. It was a singular film. It wasn't made to be this long fucking thing with all these sequels and whatever. So you needed to tell the story of the Waynes, and the Joker was your only villain, so it made sense for them to do that.
Right.
But I also point to that movie when people argue that we don't need to see the Joker's origin. I don't want to sympathize with this character. I don't want to know where he came from. Okay, well, 89, you see a guy who's just a mobster, and he's a dick. Like his girl comes up to him while he's looking in the mirror, and she goes, "You look fine." And he goes, "I didn't ask." He's just a dick.
Yeah.
But he gets, his boss double crosses him, sends a crooked cop to kill him over an affair that he had, right? And so even that is a little bit of a sympathetic situation,
right.
He didn't deserve to get taken out,
something you'd expect from a Jack Nicholson character.
Exactly. It's not out of the realm of possibility. And generally, Batman fans, I don't know about movie fans, but Batman fans fucking love that movie. And so there is some precedent for that. So to get back to what you were saying about, is the crime alley scene essential? No, not this time. But again, the idea of creating both of their alter egos on the same day from the same event is interesting.
It's fascinating.
And twisting it by not being Joker who actually kills them.
Yeah.
But they are collateral damage sort of in that equation, And I like when they do in the comics or on the show Gotham or other places where they are bringing in other characters that just on the periphery as just some kind of world building. Like you feel like it's more grounded in Gotham when you're getting these elements of other characters. At least I do.
And it also it also shows another thing that I noticed about the character of Bruce Wayne in this movie is that he seems like even before anything happened that would motivate him to become Batman, he was always just kind of a very quiet, stoic, unhappy child. Like in the scene, the gate at Wayne Manor, Bruce is just standing there quietly, and Joker or Arthur puts his fingers in his mouth and makes him smile.
Does the clown nose and the little elevator gag.
He's not enthused by it at all, and he
seems inquisitive.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's a better way to phrase it. But it almost feels like the same sort of response that he has when he's just standing there in the alley with the rats and his dead parents on there. It just seems it's interesting.
He's very internal.
It seems like maybe it's like this is kind of always something that was always kind of eminent, always kind of foreshadowing that, Batman is just going to be...
That's just inevitable.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, one of the reasons it was so difficult to watch, particularly the first time, was just because there was no yin and yang. You know, I really, I'm so trained when shit gets that far and there's cars flipped over and the streets are burning and there's, you know, clown masks everywhere that, you know, he's going to swing in and pound the shit out of him. And that's, it was well earned. He needed to get knocked down and he needed to get taken in. It was so, like, I don't want to say unsatisfying because it's such a good end of the movie, but it was, they stick you with that feeling, you know, of like, it's not getting better.
The whole movie just locks you into a room with the Joker. Yeah. And that's what you're getting. Yeah. And maybe that could just be another thing that maybe turns people off from that, is maybe, like you're saying, you know, some people just don't care to know. Yeah. Because, like, they know what the outcome is. Like, they know who this guy is going to become. And they're like, you know, I must prefer seeing it from the Batman perspective, you know, from the Bruce Wayne perspective.
You know, I've seen some people posting online, like, when the movie came out, they're like, fuck yeah, that was awesome. And I was like, if you walk out of that movie going, that was awesome, I had so much fun, like, I am deeply concerned. Yeah. And I saw some other thing that was saying in 2019 people are realizing that they have more in common with the Joker and, you know, mental illness than they do with a billionaire who protects people's property and supports the police or whatever. And I was like, are you fucking, like, if you want to reduce it to that, sure. Yeah, go enjoy ahead. Your happy little fucking world. But, like,
let me know once you add a little more nuance to that argument.
Exactly, man. Because I feel like there's a reason why Bruce Wayne has endured all this time, and the duality of that character people relate to because we have a side that we present to the world and we have a side that's ourselves. You know, there's so much there in the being wronged in life and trying to do right by it, but still being susceptible to, you know, the negative stuff. I mean, his rule is just to keep him from going down that rabbit hole because he could easily have become the Charles Bronson Death Wish character, you know, and he wasn't. And so I think that there's so much psychology in that viewing Gotham through his lens is the only thing that's kept us alive all these years. Because I can't even imagine if it was just this kind of madness all the time. That I feel like that would wear thin, you know. I can't imagine a whole series of these happening. I don't know.
It's somewhat of a relief that the filmmakers have sort of talked about how, like, Joaquin's Joker is not going to meet Robert Pattinson's Batman. Well, we're not going to...
And I'm so bummed that we won't... Because they've talked about, I mean, who knows if we ever do a sequel? And they're like, well, Batman? He's like, no. I'm like, God damn it. I want to see this dude get knocked out.
Yeah, totally.
Like,
just relax and let the movie get
them go head to head
down.
Because, you know, I've heard other people have written that, you know, he's not like a criminal genius like the Joker is. He's not whatever, you know. It's like...
He's fumbly.
But what you're seeing is the making of this person, you know. And he is reacting to the world around him. So, you know, just looking at it in simplest terms like that, when Batman comes into existence, that's a provocation. And he is going to have a reaction to it. So it's not like he's going to be some mastermind necessarily, but he would definitely... I mean, think about how he was resourceful enough to get into the room with Thomas Wayne.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he's not dumb.
Right.
He was able to evade the cops for as long as he was. He was able to, you know, get the records from Arkham. You know, he's resourceful. He's clever enough, you know. Yeah. And just because we're seeing him in a small scale doesn't mean
he's not
that he wouldn't be capable
doing
of something
a Dark Knight opening style, like, heist.
I wouldn't put it past this Arthur rendition at all. You know, I think just to go through some of the references real quick that I found anyway.
Sure.
Taxi Driver with the Sophie character, the neighbor, doing the gun to the head.
Oh, yeah.
With her fingers. That's obviously a nod to Travis Bickle in the final scene. Obviously, the king of comedy, just as we talked about in the premise, reversing the Rupert Pupkin character into Murray Franklin, the host. The Dark Knight and Heath Ledger, both with the, want to know how you got these scars and making you question, like, each part of the origin. I think that's relevant. But directly, you have the cop car sequence at the end, which is very much like when Ledger bombed the police station and escaped. Yeah. And then right before that, at the end of the TV segment, you have him actually walk up to the cameraman. He grabs the camera and does the point of view shot. And I got so excited when I saw that because from what I've read, they were actually friends as actors, Heath and Joaquin.
That makes sense.
And so I thought, well, that was cool, man. I wonder if that was like a little nod to him
recognizing
as they knew each other. I don't know what the purpose was.
Be.
Maybe it was scripted.
Joaquin won't answer.
Yeah. Maybe it was scripted. I don't know. But I thought that was really neat. The look when it first came out, I really didn't like when they first posted the test makeup shot that Todd Phillips did a year ago.
The subway, and it's like the smiling. And
I thought that was weird. But then I had been waiting a while for this book to come out on hardcover, Dark Prince Charming. That was an Italian artist and author. He did everything himself. His look is very much like it. It's funny too because the same year that The Dark Knight came out, a book called Joker came out. It was like an R-rated, real grimy character, and he had the like Cheshire smile or whatever you call it, where you can like cut his face. In listening to the creators talk about it, they had finished it like well before the movie, and they just came out at the same time, and they had the same look. It was weird. And once again, this book had actually come out in France like 2 years ago because my cousin worked at the publisher over there, and he sent me this press the press materials. I got a poster hanging on the wall over there. He's like, check this out. This is a super cool new Batman story that's from this Italian dude. I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, I wonder if they'll translate it, So finally it gets translated and released over here. And, oh, that's crazy. The Joker looks exactly like the Joaquin that just came out. Like, so it's weird how those things kind of, history repeated itself there.
Yeah.
As far as I know, there's no communication between those branches of DC film and DC Comics.
Yeah.
They're just happen to be parallel thoughts at the same time, I guess.
Yeah.
And according to Joaquin, they, like Todd Phillips just knew exactly what it was going to be. They didn't really fuck around with the look very much. It was already decided. But but that was cool because that book, Dark Prince Charming, is fucking great and a really, really good version of the Joker. Like, just from his opening scenes, you're like, yep, that's nailed it. Perfect. Yep.
Let's see.
And then Dark Knight Returns, the Frank Miller books from the 80s. Joker has been, like, institutionalized for years and years, and he doesn't speak. They just give him his medicine, and he takes it, and he doesn't say a word. He just stares at the fucking wall. And then somebody turns on the TV, and they're like, first Batman sighting in 20 years or something like that. And you see him like turn his head, and he goes on a talk show, and this like psychologist is on there, whatever, psychiatrist, I don't know the difference because I'm stupid, is, talking about like how he's a changed man and he's cured and blah, blah, blah. And Joker sips one of those ceramic mugs, breaks it on the desk, and slits the guy's throat on live TV.
Wow.
Yeah. And so like as that scene is happening with Murray Franklin, I'm like, oh shit. I was like, he's not going to kill himself. Holy shit. And so that when that happened, I was like, Frank Miller, rad. The Killing Joke was cited, obviously, because that's like one of the only books that ever hint at Joker's origin. There's that whole multiple choice thing, and then there's the just the idea of one bad day. If you boil down this movie to when it really accelerates, it's when after he sees Thomas Wayne, I think it's the next day, when he goes and does the investigation at Arkham.
Yeah.
He goes to the hospital and smothers his fucking own mom,
Puts on the makeup,
then he goes
to do the show.
Yep, puts on the makeup, he kills his coworker, and then he goes to the show and kills Murray. So I mean, so much of that happens. It is just one bad day, really, is the catalyst for this whole thing. So I thought that was really true to it as well. Even little things I wasn't sure about, like I listened to the Bat Force podcast, which I really enjoy, and I think it was on that one that they mentioned the little guy who was I forget his name. I know the big guy's name, Randall, I think.
Yeah, Randall.
But the other guy was possibly another nod to Killing Joke, because in that movie it took place at like an amusement park, the climax of it, and he had all these like circus clowns and people like in his crew as his henchmen or whatever, and so he had all kinds of little people and big people and all kinds of weird shit. So their suggestion was that maybe that was another little minor nod to the source material. Also, just it being so dark and so violent, because I mean that's a book where he shoots and implied rapes Gordon's daughter.
Yeah,
and so if that's the guy you're going for, then the scissors in the eye seems normal.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, and then this is interesting. The sequel to that 2008 Joker book just came out recently. It's called Batman Damned. And in that book, they write Thomas Wayne as an adulterer.
Oh.
And friction between the two of them before the murder happens.
Okay.
How the fuck does that keep happening? Like, that shit just can't... I mean, Thomas Wayne, I like in the idealized version. I like the romanticized version of the Waynes of, you have these other figures, the Rupert Thornes or, the Falcones, and there's other power and wealth in the city, but they were the virtuous ones. I like that about them, and so... I didn't love that in Damned, that they tried to like tarnish that a little bit. Like, oh, what if we throw this at him? I was like, no, but I don't like this one, But give him one piece of harmony in Bruce's life, please,
Yeah.
Even the memory of the parents was like more fucked up than you imagine. Like, that's terrible. When they did that in this movie, I thought, again, they're gonna make Thomas Wayne a dick again.
Everyone who wears a mask is a coward.
Yeah. And the irony in that sentence, I mean, so good. Yeah, they really made him a cock. They had originally cast, did you read this?
Mm-mm.
That role was played by Alec Baldwin.
Really?
Yeah. He signed on, and then he backed out because of scheduling, it said.
Oh.
And I knew that going into it, so the whole time I'm watching this guy, who was very good, I don't know his name, but he did a great job. But I'm just watching him and imagining Alec Baldwin, Like when they're in the bathroom, and he's like, what, you want a fucking autograph? I just hear like Glengarry Glen Ross, Alec Baldwin, with that fucking condescending, smug shit that he does really well. Almost that Departed shit, That was the only thing that I felt. Like the music was so good, the cinematography was so good. But then I knew about that casting change. I was like,
Well, I think I read somewhere, or I think I looked on online, and the actor who played Thomas Wayne was also he had a role in Dark Knight Rises. He was
really.
I that's all I can tell you.
I wonder if he was the guy in the very beginning, because there was that event. It was Harvey Dent Day at Wayne Manor, you know, and like politicians and cops or whatever, and they were talking shit about Gordon, like it was on his way out. It's like, he's a wartime. I can't remember what they called him, but I wonder if he was from that scene.
Maybe.
Shit! You know who he was?
Huh?
It was from that scene. He was the fucking guy that Selena Kyle gets in his limo and kidnaps him.
Oh.
And so, like, when she goes to get the fucking... I'm not going to go through the whole plot, but yeah. She was... I'm pretty sure he was that fucking guy, now that I think about it.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to
I think that's ringing true.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, a casting coincidence that I noticed about this movie that I tried looking up and seeing if anyone had anything to say about this.
What?
Was, have you watched, it's another Joaquin movie, You Were Never Really Here?
Not yet. It's on my Prime list to watch because
that I think is a
Joker's like one of those where like the first time I saw it, I was in the wrong headspace to see it, and it really grossed me out. I know it's going to be one of those, so I need to work myself up to it.
That's a real movie to pair with Joker in the sense of you have a Joaquin character. You know, he's basically on the other side of it, where he's basically like a hitman who has a very traumatic past, who rescues girls from like sex trafficking, and his only weapon is like he uses a hammer.
God.
But the thing about that movie and its portrayal of violence is they really, really tone down a lot of the violence. They'll have like a scene where he's walking up. They'll show it from like a security cam, and he's walking up the stairs, and he's going to these rooms, and he's like about to like bash this guy's head, and then it cuts to another part of just a quiet empty space in the building. They barely show any of the violence.
Oh,
except
well, that makes
for like
me
a few
feel
other
a little
parts.
more open to watching it.
There's some gruesome like looking visuals, and one maybe near the end that's a little, it's definitely saying something about violence. But anyway, for some flashback shots of that character as a little kid, and the actor who plays that little kid is the same actor who plays Bruce Wayne.
No shit.
Yeah,
that's great.
I was looking that up, and it's like, oh, he's also in You're Never Really Here. Well, who would he play? He plays Young Joe. He's the younger version of them. Yeah. And I looked it up. I was like, You Were Never Really Here, Joker, like question mark, Bruce Wayne, like type the kid's name.
No results.
Nothing about it. And I'm like, what? I feel like you could write a whole piece about this.
Yeah, that's crazy. I saw a piece of artwork yesterday. I'm on a couple, I have my Bat Fan Addict Instagram page where it's, because I was posting too much about it on my music page. So I created my own account for that. But then on my Facebook page, I just follow a bunch of Batman groups. There was some cool fan art that was like Joaquin kneeling down with the nose on and doing the smiley face to Bruce, but it was like a side profile in the silhouettes. And then behind them were big shadows of Joker and of Batman. I was like, oh, that's really cool. And someone was like, fucking spoiler alert, man, this is fucking bullshit. I haven't seen the movie yet. And I was like, I actually commented to this stranger that I don't know, because people were piling on like their opinion. I'm like, hey, this was in the trailer.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
This came out like 6 months ago.
Spoiler alert.
Okay.
Batman and the Joker are yin and yang and have been for decades.
Here's something I noticed the second time that I didn't notice the first time in terms of nods to other variations of the character. And maybe I'm reading into this too much, but have you ever seen Batman the Animated Series?
Yeah, when I was really, really young.
You remember the Mark Hamill Joker design? Mm-hmm. So when Arthur is at the Arkham Records desk, I think all the shots we see him are actually from the other guy's perspective. They're through that diamond-shaped grate.
Yeah.
And many of the shots are centered up so his eyes are like in the holes.
Oh, through
Yeah, and I don't know if this is by design, but the way that they draw Joker's eyes on that old Bruce Timm version is like jagged, dark circles around his eyes. Mm-hmm. And I'm watching that on the second view and going, holy shit, he looks just like Hamill's Joker. Like with the shape surrounding his eye, it like boxed him in just perfect. I thought that was really neat, even if it was unintentional. That it could be read that way, I thought was cool.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, no one's going to tell you that it is or that it isn't. It's up to you to sort of interpret it that way, and you have, and it's just another kind of small thing that you can really, look at and admire about this. Like either it is something that, they did their Joker homework, or it was like a styrofoam cup in the background of a Star Wars movie. Like, whoops,
Either they did a lot of references or they just got the character right, because there's another thing that reminded me of Jack Napier Joker in the Murray Franklin scene where he shoots him. He keeps talking to him after he's dead. He's still talking. Like he hadn't finished his thought. And it reminded me of the scene where Joker Well, actually, he goes in plain face makeup as Jack Napier and says, Grissom's out. I'm running things for the time being. And he fries that guy with the hand buzzer. And he turns him into the skeleton. And when I was a kid, that was the scariest part. And he continues to have a conversation alone in the room with the fried, smoking corpse. And he, adjusts the guy's tie up to his skull, And he's like, you always were a vicious bastard, weren't you? I'm glad you're dead. And he starts laughing.
Yeah.
And so when Arthur keeps talking after, killing Murray mid-sentence, basically, and then kind of just do off the steps, I thought that reminded me a lot of Jack's Joker too.
Yeah, it's like it's almost like going deeper into the psychosis of the Joker. That especially in in this version, I think maybe in versions of The Killing Joke where he is a failed stand-up.
Oh yeah, that reference too.
He's just trying to be he's a clown, a little bit. Is he's trying to I mean, I know he doesn't really. He thinks what he's doing is funny.
Yeah.
So he's almost doing all of these things, little theatrics, as a way to appease himself.
Yeah.
But he's also kind of if you're listening, if you like this stuff, I do children's parties, that kind of thing. He's still kind of being playful about it, being a real joker about it. And that is something that I find kind of fascinating about him, is that even Heath Ledger's Joker, he has these moments. He's blowing up a hospital, and he's pressing the button and nothing's happening, and he's still being kind of silly about it, even though he's performing heinous acts. While he's still kind of playing a role of a buffoon or of a clown.
Yeah, I actually just watched an episode of the animated series where Joker sees the mayor on television talking about the violence in the city, and I won't rest until the whole city is as safe as the mayor's mansion, or something like that. And Joker's watching TV going, all right. And so he shows up to the mayor's house at this grand old party. It looked like Billy Madison's birthday party or something, It's like a huge mansion birthday party for the mayor's son. And Joker shows up dressed up as a proper clown, does a whole routine, and actually, come to think of it, he does magic.
Oh.
How funny. He does magic. And the kid is really fascinated by him, and he's watching him. Joker puts his own candle on the top of this cake that's clearly a fucking stick of dynamite.
Yeah.
And he pushes it over, and he's like, okay, everybody, we're going to sing happy birthday or something. And so everyone's singing, standing around the cake, and this is about to fucking blow. I mean, he's Al-Qaeda. He's a fucking terrorist. This is an ISIS attack in a kid's cartoon, basically. And then only when Bruce, as a plainclothes guest, sees the thing, does he push the thing into the pool or something, But there is precedent for everything that happens in this movie, pretty much, or even one that I thought was a good analogy that wasn't a literal shot for shot was in Under the Red Hood. The character Black Mask breaks Joker out of Arkham, brings him into this room, uncuffs him or takes him out of his straitjacket or whatever. I can't remember if he's full on Hannibal Lecter like they do sometimes or not, but there's all these tough mob looking guys in there and Black Mask sitting there. Joker I can't remember how he starts, but he breaks a glass, slits the guy's throat, grabs his gun, shoots the other two guys, and then, strangles the other one or whatever, and was like, so, what can I do for you? That's the dude. You know? He's always
so
been
on
that,
brand.
But there's just no balance.
Yeah.
There's just no pulling away, and that's why this movie is everybody talking about it.
Yeah, do anything to him. He's gonna laugh. He finds humor in the most macabre, dark, sick things.
Yeah. Well, even in that scene in the Red Hood where he's like, I'm gonna need some guys. Not these guys, but can you get me some guys who aren't dead or something, something like that.
Right.
He's always had that sign. Now, on the subject of his sense of humor, can we talk about the laugh?
Sure.
I thought it was great the way that they wrote it in as a medical condition, the little card that he hands out. I thought that was fucking super clever.
Oh, yeah, totally works.
Showing it as a pained thing. And then you start to see through the dancing and through like him celebrating some of the other violence that like, oh, there might actually be a correlation between like what's wrong with this dude and the laugh. Because the more he indulges the shit when he's unmedicated is when you start to see that side of him actually become a little more magnified. And, you know, Todd Phillips was quoted saying that his only genuine laugh in the whole movie is in the final scene. When he's like, oh, just a joke I was thinking of, you wouldn't get it, you know?
Okay, yeah, that one.
And I thought it was really great because he has these horrible, uncomfortable, nervous laughs. And then, you know, like you watch him in the comedy club and he's studying.
But he's
and everyone's laughing
at the wrong time.
And then he'll laugh at the setup, you know, and so you get these ones where he thinks he's supposed to, you know? Or like when he's watching Murray Franklin on TV, you know, he does that same one. But the variation is really interesting to me and like where he does what. And I think the more times I get to view the movie, the more I'll look at that differently, I bet. Over the years, I might see that differently, I feel like, because it's such a big part of the character, the laugh, that you're not always differentiating. Like, oh, he did that one here and here, you know.
Yeah, more play of like what's real and what's not. Yeah.
So let's dive into that because a lot of my notes are on that and we haven't gotten to much of it yet. But I don't want to be here all fucking day. The card itself says medical condition that could be result of head trauma or blah blah blah, and you know, some disorder. I thought that was very interesting because it ties in with the whole Thomas Wayne story.
Yeah,
you know, he has this story that he tells. Well, I guess it's from the Arkham records that talk about the adoption and the abuse that he suffered at the hands of some boyfriend of his mom. That part is so unclear that I love it. Because you have... The card itself says it could be head trauma or it could be from a disorder, right? They're just giving examples of like, oh, this is common in blah, blah, blah. So the stranger can understand what's wrong with this guy.
Yeah, and they normally do.
Right? But they're also saying it to the viewer. You know, because you have this mother figure who you establish in the beginning has this desperate longing for this other person, is very much a shut-in. We see that she's unwell, but we don't necessarily see her medicated or talk about her condition or figure out what it is.
Yeah.
You have Thomas Wayne call her fucking crazy. You have the Arkham file that confirms this, whether or not that's planted, confirms that she's crazy. Right. And he suffers the same sort of things that they talk about in her file. Right? So either he is genetically her son and inherited these traits, or that adoption thing and the abuse is equally plausible.
Right.
They don't give you the answer, and I like that.
Yeah, you can kind of look at it. You can kind of, on different viewings of it, you can kind of see it as like, oh yeah, it is. It could be seen as this way, and then on another viewing, you're like, oh, I think, yeah, there's some weird stuff happening here. Like, what's this about?
The second viewing was harder for me in terms of wrapping my head around it. The first one was harder to watch. The second one, I had my analytic lens on. And I am going, okay, now I've seen it, I've read about it, I've listened to the interviews. Like, all right, let's figure out what the fuck actually happened.
Yeah.
And I was left with more questions than the first time. Because I feel like it's very much Vince Gilligan style, like Breaking Bad style, where that show affected how I watch movies and TV to this day. Because the way they would show you the half-burned face of the teddy bear in the pool in the first episode, ending with fucking Gus burning his face off in the last episode or whatever, like every shot in that fucking show was deliberate.
Right.
Everything intentional. Why are they showing me this? From then on, if I'm watching anything and I see something that's out of character or maybe a little mundane or whatever, I'm thinking to myself, what is the reason for this scene?
Right.
Why did this make the cut? What are they showing me? You know? And so watching the second time with that is just so much more confusing because, I mean, you could take something as simple as that little card and read into it this fucking much.
Yeah.
Okay, here's something that somebody pointed out in the comments section. He writes in his journal when it gets big and scribbly, you know, like the thing about having a mental illness is everyone expects you to act as if you don't, right? It gets messier and bigger as it starts to go down the page. I noticed he's writing it with his left hand. And I noticed that during the movie, but then there's so much other stuff going on, I forgot to pay any attention, right? But if you look, and many other times, he's using his right hand to lead with. And so that makes me wonder...
Which one is the real hand?
Is there some sort of multiple personality thing happening here? Is this a primal fear situation, like a Fight Club situation, you know, where there's some duality?
Is the penmanship a little bit...
It's worse.
It's worse.
It's noticeably worse.
So what if maybe...
Because it looks crazier on those big quotable things that he does. You know?
So maybe, yeah.
Like if you look up the page, it's normal, and then it starts to sprawl out of control. And you look... And he's writing with his left hand. But if you look, he leads his cigarette with his right hand. He does other things with his right hand. So, like, what is the purpose of this? What are you
some kind of unmentioned kind of reasoning of, like, maybe he's somewhere we don't see him decide, like, oh, I'm going to start writing with, you know, the other hand and get better at that. You know, I don't really think, you know...
Yeah, I don't know what the purpose is.
Yeah, that's a very astute observation.
And you know, there's the whole adoption thing comes as a big blow because you know he doesn't have a father figure, and he hallucinates that Murray Franklin thing in the beginning where he brings him down and says, you know, I'd give it all up to have a son like you, you know, and so you know we know that that's a big void for him. One thing I wanted to ask you about, not when we meet Sophie, the neighbor, in the elevator, but when she first comes to his door, what is he doing? In the seconds before that, he's in the apartment doing something, and I don't remember what.
Was this right after he was in the comedy club taking notes? Or is this right after...
I don't know.
He was playing around with the gun.
But the reason I'm asking is because I'm wondering what the cues are. Because from the first, their interaction and her being visibly creeped out as he does the gun to the head thing and, you know, watches her go to which apartment she goes into, she was noticeably shaken. And then the next scene, she shows up at his door happy. And instantly, first viewing, I'm going, this isn't real.
Yeah.
Something's off here.
It kind of just made me feel like, you know, what is it that, like, she finds so appealing? Either I don't know what might be going through her head, or some kind of twist is going to be spun on this.
Part of the reason I want to read into that scene more is because I think there's a significance between music, like you pointed out, dancing after a kill, right? But there's also some sort of, I think, tie between the music and the hallucinations. The attackers on the subway are singing "Send in the Clowns."
Yeah.
You know, there's something surreal about the way that plays out. And I couldn't remember specifically, but I feel like there are other musical cues. He's singing "That's Life" after, you know, Murray, but I feel like there's more than that.
In the locker room at Ha-Ha's, one of the first scenes they're playing, Everybody Plays a Fool. They're like, everybody plays the fool. Do, 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 do.
And he mentions a song that I looked up later where he says, I was listening to, you know, the radio and a song came on that says, my name is Carnival. That's my stage name, you know. And
surprised
so I'm wondering if there's more to be said within, you know, when he's singing or other characters are singing, if that is showing us what is and isn't real.
Did you ever see American Werewolf in London?
No.
So that was a movie, a John Landis movie from the early 80s about these guys who are like backpacking in Europe, and one of them gets bitten by a a werewolf and is later becoming a werewolf, and all of the music, all of the songs that are used it's like Blue Moon or Bad Moon Rising. Every song implemented in the movie is like has moon in the title or like uses like moon. So I was thinking about that when watching this movie, thinking maybe it's just sort of a motif, just like used as just sort of a leitmotif, audible kind of thing that will.
All those things are great for setting the mood, but I was just reading into it more because I mean, even if you think of the lyrics of That's Life and why that was chosen to be a recurring song, I mean, you see,
isn't that
the
even
way he delivers?
That's even Murray Franklin's like sign off.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you see the way he delivers it. You know, some people get their kicks from stomping on a dream. You know, and like it's so intense when he's like whisper singing it at the end. I just wonder if there's something in there about what's imagined and hallucinated, you know.
Maybe it could be read as like during each scene, whatever the kind of song that's playing is somewhat sort of like shadowing over that, like when they're what the song that they're the Wall Street guys are singing when they're
sending the clowns.
It's almost like that is like that's the sort of the moment when he has his first kills. Yeah. And it's sort of like, all right, here we go. Like, send in the clowns. Here we go. We're going to get this Joker thing like really started right now. And
I feel like it's just like the laugh thing where there's two contradictory theories because they show you that Sophie's not real by establishing those shots where we saw her earlier and fading her out of them and showing him there alone, right? And so that leads you to believe that the rest of it is real. But there are so many things that imply otherwise, you know. Okay, do you remember the opening of The Dark Knight? We just talked about it, the bank scene, right? Mm-hmm. One of the other masked clowns gets shot, and he asks Heath's Joker, was that 5 or 6? And he, like, holds up 6, you know, stands up and gets shot. Where did you learn to count, right? Because he wanted that guy to get shot.
Yeah.
Okay, subway scene. He's holding a revolver. We see it many times. It's a 6-shooter. He fires 8 times. Second time I watched it, I counted them just because I was trying to figure out what the fuck's real.
Right.
And I thought of that, and so he shoots the first guy once, which again we don't see him shoot the guy. Shots start happening.
Yeah.
The other guy gets shot twice instantly. He pegs the other guy on the way out the door.
Yeah.
So there's already 4. And then, you know, gradually shoots this guy multiple times as he's running away.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, how the fuck did we get to 8 on that 6-shooter?
Yeah.
When the only time we're not seeing him is he's just dodging back and forth looking through the doorway of the subway to see if the guy's going to get off.
And even when he shoots through the wall in the apartment.
You could say that he had reloaded it in that period of time.
I see.
You know, you could have said that.
I thought you meant just like...
But just in terms of...
6 period.
You have a 6-shooter, you're not reloading it, you know. We never see him... Actually, it's true. We never see him get, you know, ammunition.
Do we ever see the full amount of ammo that he got from Randall? We just kind of...
It was a small amount in a bag. So, yeah. I mean, it's not out of the question to say that there was enough in there to do everything he did in the film, but there was definitely not enough in the gun in the 2-3 minutes of that subway scene for that to occur.
Yeah.
That wasn't possible. Okay, the mom. He goes into the apartment. She's sitting on the recliner. Murray comes on, and he like wakes her up to dance with her or whatever, right? And this is right before he finds the letter on the table. And they get in this big fight. When he first walked into the house, I thought, oh, she's dead, sitting in the chair.
Yeah.
She looked dead, right? I mean, she's very still, and, you know, we know she's sickly and kind of decrepit state of being. And so I thought, oh, she's dead. And then he starts talking to her and, like, you know, picks her up sort of and is dancing with her.
Yeah.
And, like, oh, I guess she's not dead. But I wonder if she's been dead the whole time, because there's that. He, you know, she looks dead. He picks her up and starts dancing her involuntarily.
Okay.
He then has a big argument with her through a door. They never interact.
Yeah.
Physically, you can't see it. It's all through the door. So he puts her in the other room, door closes, yelling. No interaction there. The next time we see her, he is coming back and she's on a stretcher.
Right.
Now, there was a line of dialogue that the police said they were questioning her and she had a stroke.
Mm-hmm.
So again, that's the easy explanation. But I'm still looking at this going, did he kill his mom? Was she already dead in the first place? Or did she have a stroke and she was laying there in the fucking chair? You know?
So maybe it's like we're just seeing things from like a different timeline.
Who knows? Because I was wondering that on the second viewing going, let me go with my gut. The first time I thought she was dead. What if she is dead? What does that mean? And so it's like, okay, he's dancing around with her body. They're yelling at each other through the door. The next time we see her, she's on the stretcher. And then she never speaks again, I don't think, the whole rest of the movie. She's in the hospital bed the rest of the time.
I think the only thing she says is like right before he smothers her, he's like whispering, I love you.
Yeah, I think she opens her eyes or something. But yeah, so that made me wonder how much of that was real as well. Can we talk about the fridge?
Yeah. I don't know what I could talk about other than I had some questions.
Yeah.
That's right before he gets the call to be on Murray,
segue, because he gets home and the phone is ringing,
so
and he rips everything out of the fridge and climbs inside.
Yeah.
And the cut to the next scene where he's in bed the next morning and the phone is ringing. And so that led me to a whole other question. But the fridge itself, I didn't know if that was supposed to be symbolic or if that was just, I even thought of like the term fridging, like to kill a character to move the plot forward, that they often do to a female character.
Oh, okay.
Like I learned that after Deadpool 2. They were saying, oh, you fucking fridged Vanessa or whatever. And I was like, what are you talking about? And I read into it, and apparently that's a thing. That it's usually like a female character, but they just kill someone off as a big plot device,
Yeah.
I think that was right after he killed his mom, if I remember right.
It was right after he watched Murray
make fun of him.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe
it
was
show. And then like the next, because that's when, I think that's around the similar time when he gets like, does he get a voicemail saying like from the detectives?
Yeah,
like,
the direct transition out of the fridge is the phone is ringing and then cut to the voicemail.
Yeah.
So that makes me wonder, I mean, his dream was to be on the Murray Franklin show as established in the very beginning.
He just wants his phone call.
So what if the call finally coming in is bullshit too? Because it was his fucking fantasy. It was the first provable, obvious fantasy of the movie.
Yeah.
Was that he wanted to be on that show.
Right.
Right? And then he sees this shit of them making fun of him. Right? So that shit is under his skin. It's probably all he's fucking thinking about.
Yeah.
And bam, he gets the call. It's not out of the question to think that that could be an invention as well.
Yeah. One thing that kind of raises a question to me is, okay, so within his fantasy, he's at the Murray Franklin show.
Yeah.
And so he's coming up with everything that's in that in his mind in that scene. Within that scene, Murray tells the joke about the super rats. How the mayor has decided like a solution to this, super cats. And everyone laughs. And it makes me think like, through using the fantasy, did the Joker come up with an actual real joke that's not sick or dark?
Oh, like even the dialogue just was like imagined.
Written like the things that he wanted to hear.
Well, maybe not though. Maybe because he's not just in his bedroom with the lights off when he thinks of the Murray Franklin show. He actually begins by watching it. So you could argue that is actually the part of the monologue before he's like inserted himself.
Could
there,
be. It could just that's right.
Because
Because that's what was happening at the time.
Yeah, because he's watching the show and then just picturing himself in the audience.
It could just be him like kind of absorbing the things like like writing the notes. Like maybe because when he's sitting in the comedy club, he's like, what does he say? Like
the sex joke's always funny.
Sex joke's always funny. So like he's just sort of absorbing that and just regurgitating that in his fantasy. Okay, now that does make more sense.
Randall. Obviously, he gives him the gun But when he gives him the gun, he does this weird, creepy thing. Did you pick up on it? Instantly Arthur's like, I'm not supposed to have this. He's like, oh, don't worry about it. I won't tell anyone. I know you're good for it. You're my little buddy. Or like he says something really odd. It established like a power dynamic. It had some weird implication that there was more to that murder than
just like you having that.
Than just
getting him.
Oh, you told them about me, or
like kind of getting him fired.
Yeah,
essentially.
Yeah, because he kind of turned on him to cover his ass.
Well, and maybe like even if you take out all of that stuff within the movie, when he talks to the little person, he says, "You're the only one who was ever nice to me."
Yeah,
like that almost says like, I mean, there's plenty of other things that had to have gone down in the locker room or just like at work that would imply that no one else was nice to him, and that could just be like another thing that like maybe he doesn't. What he says is, cryptic or creepy or weird. Just
to establish some other fucking negative context at that place.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It was one thing that they didn't really dig into very much.
One thing I do think was kind of interesting about the gun, whenever someone would try to accuse him of having the gun, like, why'd you bring a gun to a children's hospital?
It was a prop.
It was a prop. It's part of my act.
Yeah.
The gun really is part of his act. Like
true.
At the very end of the movie, it's
that's true.
That's kind of all like eventually
that's
like
funny.
He replaces this fake clown persona using the gun as part of his act.
Yeah. Now I want to wrap this up by talking about the end. There's a lot to digest just in the last 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't know what is to be said about. We see him rehearsing his televised suicide at home, and we see him rehearsing it in the green room. And I believe, they set you up with that knock-knock joke, which actually reminds me of The Dark Knight again in the way that Harvey Dent was created in a courtroom by the defendant throwing acid on his face when he's called to the stand. So when that guy pulls a gun on him, that's a misdirect for the fans of the comics. Because you see the guy reach in his jacket and you're like, oh! And it was like, wait, what? And he knocks him out and you're like, oh, shit, so how's it going to happen?
Right.
And they do that with his knock-knock joke. Because we saw him practice it, and he does it. And we're
seemed like he's going to go right into it.
And he reaches into his back pocket and he pulls out the joke book.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay.
That whole scene is really a moment of like tension. Even after the first time I watched it, I was obviously really tense. The second time I watched it, I was still kind of tense.
Yeah,
and even though I knew it was going to happen.
The Dr. Ruth character next to him, and in watching it again, De Niro really gave a great performance. In the guy wasn't egging him on at all. He wasn't mocking him. In the beginning, sure they make a couple little. Jabs, but I mean, nothing bad at all.
Yeah.
And he's like, you really think that this is funny? You think this is something, and he spoke to him like a human being.
Yeah.
Like you would think a newsman of the 70s would do.
Yeah. Like now you're not talking to a murderer.
Like he took it on like some moral responsibility. Like, okay, you're going to do this on my show.
Right.
Well, let's talk about it then.
Yeah. Literally all jokes aside.
Yeah. So much of that plays out as real. It's more so the stuff before and after that make me think that it's possibly not. But the scene that follows, he's in the cop car, he's admiring the chaos in the streets.
Yeah,
and
kind of a reversal of when he's going out with the neighbor when in the fantasy, and he looks out and he sees the guy in the cop car who has the mask on, and then he has a little smirk on his face. Now he's in the cop car. True. And he's watching all the other shit that's going on.
True, outside. That's a great parallel. I didn't catch that. But yeah, so he's kind of admiring what's happening in the streets, which one could easily believe, given the state of Gotham. The garbage strike and the way people reacted to the subway shootings and the protests at Thomas Wayne's event and and all this unrest. But then he gets hit with the car. And this is where even first viewing starts to clearly unravel, because he is lifeless in the car. Everyone else is dead. They pull him out. His lifeless body is tossed on the hood of this car. And then as people start to gather around, he is now well enough to stand on the hood of a broken car and dance.
Yeah.
And then notices there's blood coming out of his mouth and does the smile, right? And the Wayans is the only thing that makes me think there's some realism in this scene, because we know that that's canon. But we also know that this movie isn't fucking canon. This movie isn't necessarily that.
Yeah.
It makes you think, yeah, okay, that's happening, because you see the guy kill the Wayans in the alleyway.
And he utters the same thing that
he
Arthur
repeats
says. Yeah.
The last thing he said to Murray, which I can't remember the line.
Get what you fucking deserve.
Yes, exactly. So there's some symmetry there that's really nice. But his condition after the car crash, that is all hallucinated. I mean, there were a lot of clown people out for the protest that night. We know this. Mm-hmm. And there was also, just kind of riots in the streets. We know all that's happening. So it's possible all those people could have been there. Could also just been his fantasy of finally getting all the fucking love that he was looking for. But if you just think about the accident, his condition, going to the fucking post-kill dance thing, and then the blood is really the indicator to me that he's laying there, he's having this fantasy, oh shit, I'm dying. Blood's coming out of it, oh fuck, I'm dying. You know? And then making peace with that is pulling the blood smile on his face, of like accepting, like, I fucking showed them,
Yeah.
And so I viewed that as his death.
Him, hoping that his death makes more sense than his life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly what the fuck it is.
I see.
That's how I read it.
No, yeah, I didn't think of it that way. But it's a good way to tie in the journal. And I also just noticed, I was thinking that each of the little needle drop moments might have been emblematic of something.
Yeah.
I was noticing that it was like I'm noticing a theme in everything except for the way that they use the song right after when he's in the cop car. They use the Cream song. They use White Room, and at first I was like, I'm kind of questioning about that. And then of just a few minutes ago, I was like, holy shit, yeah, right. White Room, and it's just full. Yeah,
okay, perfect segue. Final scene, Arkham. First thing I noticed as a red flag is actually if you skip the interview portion and go to his little jot down the hallway, right? When I first looked at it, I kind of did a double take because it's panning towards him. It's pushing in, right? And I'm going, wait, how far away was he from the edge of the frame in the beginning of that shot?
Right.
Because we see the bloody footprints, right? But we don't see a lead from anything. There's no streak. On the second viewing, I was watching closer, and he has a long stride, so it's possible, but I believe that he is just standing in the middle of the frame. Have you seen The Last Jedi?
Yes.
Okay, so Luke's force projection of himself, he's the only one who doesn't have red footprints on that fucking planet at the end.
Yeah.
Because of the salt planet or whatever, right? Because he wasn't fucking there.
Yeah.
I did not see that the first time. I saw it the second time. Now, this one, the first time, I went, fuck. There's no footprints like right behind him. There's no streaking. There's no dripping. There's no nothing. And he was sort of in the middle of the frame.
Yeah.
Now, as it pans in, they brighten the window at the end of the hallway, and they're cranking the exposure here, and he's walking towards the light, further implying that this dude is dead, and this is some end-of-life hallucination shit, right? But then, if you rewind to the to that interview moments before, he doesn't have green hair.
No makeup, nothing.
He is in a white room, in a white facility, much like in his first interview with a social worker. He said, I think I was happier in the hospital.
Yeah.
And they show for like 2 seconds him bashing his head against the wall or the window, and we see totally white walls and stone. That's what we see in this final interview. It's a different caseworker, but she looks very similar. Now here's there's the conspiracy shit. Now, the clock. I've seen screenshots. And Kevin McCarthy brought this up, too, when he interviewed both Joaquin and Todd Phillips. He's like, yeah, I noticed there's a couple clocks in the movie that are set at the same time. He's like, what's the 11:11 thing? Does that signify a comic reference or anything like that?
Yeah.
And, Joaquin, didn't give a shit. And then Todd Phillips was like, I don't know, it must be set designer, coincidence, whatever, played it off. But if you're thinking in terms of the whole thing not being real, there's multiple 11:11s, so no time would have passed. He's up in his head and he's singing the song, and he's like, "Oh, you wouldn't get it." Makes me just think that this whole shit is some fucking fantasy that he had during his psych evaluation.
Yeah, I was almost when you were talking about what's real and not real, I was like, what if nothing that you saw before this was real at all?
Yeah.
And that he just sort of became the Joker by some happenings that were not even seen throughout the entire movie.
Yeah.
It's like, if you don't want to see a Joker origin story, you may not have actually seen a Joker origin story.
Yeah.
You just may have just seen a whole mind trick that was made you to believe that this is how we got here, when in reality, he's not to be trusted in the way that he tells a story. The whole movie's from his point of view.
Yeah.
Maybe it's all just fantasy.
And nothing's grounded. I mean, we hear the mom say, that's not true, he wasn't adopted. We see the fucking 8 gunshots in the thing, but then we also see the people on the news and in the newspapers that are talking about the shooting on the subway. So we're taking that even if that seemed off, this shows that it was real, right? Because, we're carrying on with the story here. And then you're showing other things that are false. So then by process of elimination, these other things must be real. But, I mean, people have had dreams where I've had a dream where I had a dream, or there are so many levels, it's like some Inception shit almost.
Yeah.
If you really want to get down to it. And that's why it's such a really great, interesting script. You could read the obvious hallucinations and the rest is true. You could read none of it's true. You could read that all of it's true up until the car crash, which is what I first thought when I watched it the first time.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point, I'm really left to think that this is just some sad dude's revenge fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
This could be some guy in his jail cell talking to his cellmate going like, oh, yeah, but what I did to get in here.
Yeah.
And just, it's almost got him in the animated series. They have all the villains sitting around a poker table telling their story of where they almost got Batman. This could just be his oh, man, you want to know how I got in here? Who knows?
Yeah. One stretch that I kind of can think of is how, how in between the line when he says, I was just laughing at a joke, can I tell it? You wouldn't get it. I think in between that, they cut to Bruce and his parents there on the ground.
Yes, they do.
Almost telling you, maybe that's the only thing that is true about any of this, is that, the entire thing that we already kind of know happened, we don't see the person who shot them in that shot. All we see is just, that iconic image of Bruce Wayne with his dead parents in the alley. Maybe this isn't even origin Joker. This is, Batman is already, a thing Joker.
Yeah.
And he's like, I was thinking of a joke, the joke being how he was able to motivate the actions that led to
the
Wayne's killing. And that is being sort of a sign.
I was thinking something else, because under the premise that this is in his head, he has a personal grudge against Thomas Wayne.
Mm-hmm.
So that could easily be a projection of his fantasy that, that the Waynes were killed and that didn't actually happen. That's what he wanted to happen.
Right.
The other thing, if you wanted to really take that to ridiculous territory, just for the sake of argument, you could even fathom that because the Joker has always been obsessed with Batman. I mean, if you look at that book by Sean Murphy, White Knight, the premise of it, Joker and Harley break up because he's too obsessed with Batman, and many incarnations they're like that, you said before, a crime has no punchline without Batman, So if the Wayne's murder is his projection, his fantasy, then in this Elseworlds tale, you could even stretch it to say that the existence of Batman and their whole playoff back and forth Tom and Jerry routine forever is just, him, his jail cell fantasy, if you really wanted to stretch it, since he's always had that obsessive quality. Probably not, but I'm just saying, like, it's a fun thought. This is why I love these kind of movies, because you could walk out there going, well, I just pulled this out of my ass. That could even be, well, how about that one?
Oh, that's the beauty of talking about movies. You could pull anything out of your ass.
Yeah.
No one's going to tell you, like, you're right, you're wrong. It's like,
I'm sure after this, someone's going to tell me you're fucking wrong. But I just thought this was a good opportunity to shoot the shit on something that I wish that had, like, come out when you're in high school and, like, 4 of your friends go to see it and you all hang out and talk about it afterward. And I didn't really get that chance, and I wasn't going to do it all in the comments of other people's threads, and I didn't want to write some dissertation, so I thought it'd be really fun just to talk it out and see where we land. And
yeah,
that was fun, man.
Oh yeah, it was super.
All right, that is our show. Thank you guys so much for listening to this kind of random offbeat movie episode. Go check out the film and keep some of these thoughts in mind. I think the greatest thing about it is that there are no easy answers, and it's fun to just kind of try to make your own sense of what story you actually just watched. Even as I was editing it, I came up with other similarities and new thoughts. Listening to the end conversation, the fact that he's in the White Room, it made me think, well, maybe this is how he got to the White Room that they showed in that earlier cutaway, since it's clearly not the dingy Arkham we saw when he went to get the records. Maybe this is how he got there in the first place, because we never saw. He just said, I think I was happier in the hospital, and they show him for 2 seconds or something in the hospital. And then at the end, he's in a very, very similar place. So, this could just be his own crazy memories version of how he wound up there earlier. Who knows? I don't know, but it was a really good time to talk it out. Next week, we're going to be back to normal. I've got Trevor Riley from A Wilhelm Scream, one of my absolute favorite bands. I just dropped a new video featuring B. Dolan. It's called Buckshot. If you haven't seen it, please go to video.take92.com, or you can look it up on YouTube. That's Buckshot, Sammy Warm Hands, and B. Dolan. I hit bad timing with this one, and nobody has really seen it. So help me out with your shares. As always, subscribe to the show, and I'm going to go fuck myself and get the fuck out of your hair. Thanks, Brian.
That's life.